panel on my own. Because they're like, oh, you've done enough anime panels, so why don't you do something completely different? I'm like, how am I different to Aki and Misty? Oh, I know, I can speak like 3 more words of Japanese than them, so... I was like, I'll just make a bullshit excuse and just do that. So, pretty much, I say seminar, but I think it's most likely going to be more of like a Q&A type of video. Oh, video. Sorry, my YouTube Tourette's just came in. So, we'll try and stick to the theme of stuff, right? So, hands up if you have been to Japan before. Okay. Hands up if you want to go to Japan. That was a rhetorical question. So, how many of you guys are... How should I phrase this? How many of you guys are learning Japanese or are trying to learn Japanese? Okay, that's good. Otherwise, this panel might be really boring. So, yeah, pretty much we're gonna keep it maybe to like Japanese stuff, Japan, because I'm usually pretty okay at talking about that. So I guess just put your hand up, and then Michael will come around with the microphone and you can ask me a question or comment about something, whatever you guys want. So yeah, let's begin. You can choose, Michael. It's up to you, man. Of course. Only the most dabbiest.
So, what's a good, if I want to learn Japanese, which I do, what's a good start?
What's a good start with Japanese?
Yeah, learning Japanese.
With learning Japanese. See, like, most people would say buy a textbook, right? With any language. But I can't really recommend that because I didn't start with that. Like, I started with my mom, who taught me Japanese ever since I was little. So, most people would say buy a textbook, but I personally think to start things, I actually don't think watching anime is that of a terrible way to learn Japanese to begin with. So, I mean, I think most of you guys' like exposure to the Japanese language is probably through anime, right? Yeah. So I don't think that's a terrible way to start learning Japanese because, you know, it's proper Japanese, right? Of course, there are a lot of words and phrases in anime that nobody says in real life. Like, nobody walks around Japan going like, "Kisama," like, no one says that. But I think to like start it off, because Japanese is really, with languages I find, it's really important to hear it, right? Hearing it and just letting it run into your head is the easiest way to learn language. So I think watching anime is good to start with, but not the best thing to just use overall. Once you've got like a good idea of how Japanese sounds, then I think moving on to things like textbooks, going to Japan. Like, going to Japan is great because then you're forced to use the language, right? Because no one, I mean, if you're in Tokyo, then there are a lot of Japanese people who will try to help you with English. I mean, not everybody can speak it fluently, but there are a lot of Japanese people who do their absolute best to try and understand it. But, you know, most of the time it'll just be a lot of like awkward smiling and nodding. Get what you're saying, okay. Really they don't, right? So, yeah, I don't think... Does anyone, like, use textbooks and stuff like that to learn Japanese? Yeah, I think that's really good. So just keep going on with that. And then, you know, I think what my mom always used to say to people who asked a similar question is, when you do go to Japan, don't be afraid to use the language. Because if you don't use it with the native people, then there's no way you're gonna get good at it. So even if you think, I might be saying this the wrong way, or I don't think this is the exact way to say the sentence, I think it's best to at least give it a go. Because, again, like, Japanese people will try to understand what you're trying to say. And they'll be like, okay, that wasn't perfect, but I got the general gist of it. And then that's where like textbooks come in to like help you figure out that this is actually the correct way to use it. And then you're like, oh, okay, I know where I got it wrong now. And then next time you talk to a Japanese person or you're in Japan, you can use it the correct way. And then you just recycle and repeat that process until you know, in my case, 22 years later, and you're finally confident enough to live in Japan by yourself. So, yeah. Thanks for your question, though, dude. Oh, I didn't even tell him to do that.
I was wondering about the cost of living over there. I've heard it's astronomical. Does it compare? I know that y'all went to LA and New York. I was just wondering about the cost of staying over there or living over there.
Cost of living. Yeah, compared to places like LA and New York, definitely Japan is, when it comes to cost of living, is a lot cheaper. And I think that's like kind of one of the things that really pulls in, especially a lot of like people from America, like Australia, like Europe, to Japan. Like, of course, you know, the culture is one thing, but like, cost of living there is actually relatively cheap. But that's because in Japan, a lot of Japanese people get paid like pretty much bare minimum, but it kind of evens out, right? So to give you like a basic like understanding of it, and I don't know how much rent and all that kind of stuff is in New York and LA. I'm just assuming it's expensive as hell, right? My place, for example, is a little bit outside of Tokyo, and I'm paying less than $1,000 a month for it. It's a tiny apartment. That's the other thing, right? It's like, I found that like American apartments, or like American houses especially, are pretty big. Right? They're pretty spacious for what you get. Whereas Japan, because we're a lot smaller in terms of people, our houses are also a lot smaller. So that's like one thing you kind of need to get used to. Like, I remember the first thing Aki said to me when she came to my place was like, wow, this place is fucking tiny. And I'm like, this is actually an average size. Like, so that's, I guess, one thing you gotta get used to, but I mean, the cost of living again is like cheap, so you're kind of getting your money's worth, right? But Tokyo is always relatively expensive depending on where you are. Food is cheap as hell. Like, you can go to a convenience store in Japan and spend no more than $3 and you can feed yourself the entire day. So that's like another like thing that I think pulls in a lot of like Americans, Australians, Europeans, all that, right? So, I mean, if you're traveling to Japan, then you don't have to save a whole lot of money, which is nice, right? It's an affordable, nice trip because, you know, cost of travel and that kind of stuff is also pretty cheap. As long as you don't get like stuck in the kind of tourist traps where everything is like way more expensive than everything else. Like, perfect example is like, how many people have been to Japan before again? Okay, how many of you guys went to Harajuku? Like the fashion district, yeah? Okay, so the main place in Harajuku, which is this fashion district in Tokyo, is this fashion road called Takeshita-dori. And there's always people bustling there. It's like, you know, really like fashiony place there. But I always tell people who visit to not go there because if you just travel like 100 feet further down the road, you get stuff better and for like a quarter of the price. So I guess you need like kind of a local person to tell you that kind of stuff. Otherwise you'd be like, oh, look at all this kind of stuff. This is pretty cool, right? And then you buy all of this stuff and then you regret it because you walk a little bit more. It's like, oh, they sold this for like 20 bucks and I can get the same thing for like 4 bucks. So it kind of sucks. But I mean, if you guys like want to experience that kind of stuff, then I think that's really fun. Just, you know, be prepared to spend a lot of money. And also be prepared to take out a lot of cash. Because unlike America, there are a lot of places in Japan that don't use card. So before you come, like, just take some cash out and then carry some cash around with you. And then that way you won't get rejected at like every store you go to. Yeah. Thanks for your question, dude.
So, you as an Australian, or you used to live in Australia,
Yeah.
did you have any difficulty actually transitioning into Japanese culture, or did you experience anything like that?
Not really, because I was born and raised in Australia, but like up until I was around 19, I'd say, like just up until I entered university, I was visiting Japan like every year because I have family living over there as well. Like my mom's side all lives in Japan, so I visit for maybe a few weeks a year, maybe a month a year. So overall, like I've spent quite a bit of time in Japan. I just haven't lived there for long term. So it's funny because like when I moved to Japan last year, the feeling of I'm moving to a different country didn't really like come to me. Like the fear of, oh, I'm moving out of my parents' place was actually more of like a bigger fear in the back of my mind, which is weird, right? But yeah, when I came to Japan, like everything just seemed really natural. Like I had to learn a lot of things, of course, because I was living on my own, and like I had to learn, like, okay, how do I pay rent? How do I do taxes? How do I do all of these adult things that I don't want to take care of? But you know, you have to learn, unfortunately, otherwise you're on the streets. So I mean, I didn't have that huge of a problem. It also definitely helped that I have family over there and also have a lot of friends over there as well. So yeah, I mean, I've been in Japan for coming up to almost a year. I moved May last year, so I think I've transitioned pretty well. Yeah, thanks for your question, dude.
Similar to the last question, how difficult is it to come to Japan legally, like immigrating to Japan?
Okay. It's a little bit of a doozy, unfortunately. Like right now, I'm trying to get Aki a visa to come and stay in Japan with me. Well, the problem is the Japanese government really gives us a hard time. There are like different ways. I think it's especially difficult for Americans, unfortunately, because I have a lot of friends from Australia who are in Japan right now, but they have this thing called a working holiday visa, which unfortunately you guys don't have. But a lot of my American friends who live in Japan right now, they are on just either like working visas, so you know, they work at like Japanese high schools teaching English. And that kind of stuff is like pretty easy to get into from my understanding. Like you don't really need any kind of like teaching degree or anything. Like as long as that you can show that like I have a sufficient level of English and I'm okay with standing in front of a classroom full of 30 to 50 students, then I think it's relatively easy to get in that way. But the problem is it's not permanent, right? So you either have to, like if you want to like stay in Japan permanently, then you either have to like work for like a proper business in Japan, which is difficult if you don't know a good level of Japanese, or you, in the case with yourself, you pick up a nice Japanese girl and you get married to her. So, yeah, it's a little bit difficult, unfortunately, but I think that's the case with like a lot of countries. But I mean, if you want to stay in Japan for like a year or two, then teaching English in a Japanese school, I think, is like a really good way to do it. Thanks for your question, dude.
What's the most shocking thing about Japan?
What's the most shocking thing about Japan? Most shocking thing? I mean, I do a whole series of it on my channel. Or what the fuck, Japan? I mean, every time I make a new episode of those and you guys like tweet to me like, hey, look at this thing, like Japan created a service where you can, you know, buy friends. And I looked at that, I'm like, that's pretty shockingly stupid. I don't know, but like on a day-to-day basis, I think the most shocking thing about Japan is just the people, I think. Because like, you know, as much as I love Japan, and as much as we all love Japan, it's not, like, in the case of like my What the Fuck Japan series, like, I kind of made that series to show you that like, Japan isn't the most utopian country in the world, unfortunately. You know, it's just like any other country. It has its pros, but it also has its cons. And especially with Japan, those cons are like, what the fuck? So, but the people are like, I don't know how to say it. It's like, they respect foreigners. Like, don't get me wrong, like, you know, because we're living in 21st century now, like, we have to kind of like, you know, understand that like there are a lot of people from different countries visiting our country. But I guess with like Japan, there'll always be like this kind of underlying like, what's the word, xenophobia? Because, you know, they were an island country for thousands and thousands of years, so they're not gonna like change overnight and be like, hey, welcome everybody, come on in. Like, you know, they're not gonna be like that, so, but I think that's the case with like a lot of countries, I find. It's like, I find a lot of countries like, and I don't want to get like, you know, politically correct, or like, I don't want this conversation to get that deep, because Jesus Christ, this is an anime convention. So you guys didn't turn up here to talk, to hear me talk about racial correctiveness in Japan. So, I don't know, like, I think coming from a person who's never lived in Japan, or has like never been exposed to Japan, I think everything you're gonna see is gonna be pretty shocking, just because, like, especially compared to America, like, Japan is just such a different country. So I think that's like one fun thing to experience when you go to Japan, is just to like find all those like little bits that are really different in Japan. And I think a lot of those things you're gonna be shocked at first, but then you're gonna like come to like it quite a bit. Yeah. Next big question.
Where would you recommend going to Japan for like a first comer? Or
It depends what you want to see. Like, for me personally, well, since we're at an anime convention, and I suppose you all like anime to some degree, at least I hope you do. You know, there's always the town of otakus, Akihabara, as it's called. Even though that's not actually the title of the city, it's still called Electric City. But like, I think there's like a big three with like everybody who goes to Japan. That's Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto. Tokyo because it's the capital, you know, there's all sorts of things to experience. You can go to Akihabara, which is like Otaku City. You can go to Harajuku, which is Fashion Street. You can go to Asakusa, which is like huge temples. You can go to Odaiba, which is like along the coastline and has the giant Gundam statue, which you might have seen before. And then if you go a little bit out to the west, there's the next major city, which is Osaka, which is like, if you love food, then you need to go to Osaka. And then you go a little bit north, and then there's the third biggest place, which is Kyoto, which is like, once you step into Kyoto, you'd think you'd like time travel like to 100 years ago, because everything there is like really traditional, like temples everywhere, like even the people dress up in like old-ish clothes. So it's like a really like interesting experience, I think. Other than that though, like, geez, if you like skiing or snow, then you go into the winter, then you can go up north to Hokkaido. If you prefer the summertime, then you can go all the way to the south to Okinawa. There's just a lot of cool, interesting places. I'm still actually like kind of in the stage where I'm traveling around all sorts of different places in Japan just to see where all the cool parts are. Like, you know, when Aki was with me last year, we went to the Suicide Forest, and we went to Yakushima, and like just all these places like I'd never even heard of or like experienced up until that point. And I'm doing a lot more of that this year as well with Aki. So yeah, just I think there's one thing you need to like kind of look for when you plan your trip to Japan is like, what do I want to see? How much time do I have? And like, what do you want to prioritize? Yeah. Thanks for your question.
Hey Joey. So I wanted to ask about Japanese because I've been studying for about 3.5 years now, almost 4. And I wanted to ask you, like, do you intake your like otaku media in Japanese? And when you do you come across words that you don't know? Because I know when I play games and like watch anime and stuff, if it's just normal everyday language, of course I'll understand, and a little above that I will. But when it comes to like you're talking about like all these different moves and like scientific stuff, and I get like stuff. So do you ever have to look up stuff or?
Oh yeah, no. Like even like to this day, like you know, while I'm doing like research, for example, on like a video, or like if I'm just reading a book, like oh yeah, I'll totally come across words that I have absolutely no idea even existed. But I think that's the case with like everyone, right? Like, you know, everyone in this room I assume is like pretty fluent in English. But, you know, I think there are times with everyone where like you'd read like say a scientific paper or just like read the newspaper and you'd be like, what's that word? I never heard of that. Is that an English word? So like, I think that's the same with Japanese as well. Like, I don't think, what I love about language and what I think is really interesting about language, like studying it for all these years is like, you know, you can call yourself fluent in a language, but no one is ever 100% fluent, you know. There's always a word you're gonna come across to be like, what the hell is that? Like, did they just introduce that word, or has it been around for a long time, or is that a typo, or like, what is that? So, that's totally the case with Japanese, but I love that with Japanese. Like, I love doing research on something, or like, reading just a novel, and coming across a word I've never heard of, because it's exciting. It's like, oh crap, like, I can learn something from this. And what I really like about like Japanese words, or what I used to do when I was back at home, was I'd be reading a novel, and my mom was like, she kind of majored in language, like Japanese language in school. So she's like really good when it comes to like Japanese words. So instead of going to like a dictionary, I'd actually just go to my mom and be like, what's that? And if she doesn't know that word, then I just assume it's a typo. Even though I should be doing that with a dictionary. But like, I just rely on my mom and just be like, what's that word? And if she's like, I don't know, what is that word? And I'll be like, okay, that's not a real word. Yeah. But yeah, with like, and I still do this, and I think this is like a good thing for anyone who's trying to learn Japanese, is like to see the word, and then you figure out the meaning of it, and then you think, okay, how can I use that in a sentence? And then you say that sentence over and over and over again, and you remember that word over and over and over again. And I do this with my mom every time I learn a new word. So like, if there's a new Japanese word, I'll be like, what does this mean? She'll be like, that means that. And then I use it in a sentence. I'll be like, okay, would you use this word in a sentence like this? And she's like, yeah, that's right. Then I'll be like, okay. And then that's how I remember it for the next time. And then when I get the chance, I use that sentence or use that word to someone else, just so I can use it. And then if they kind of look at me like, what did you just say? Then I'll be like, oh crap, that's not how you use it. Or they don't know that word, right? So I think that's like a really, really good way. And like, you can start doing this like right from when you start learning Japanese. Like, you can learn some kind of greeting in Japanese and be like, you know, just say it to someone who knows Japanese or is Japanese. And, you know, if you're friends with that person, or, you know, they're nice to you, then they'll correct you, right? And it's just, like, it's a long process, especially if you're trying to learn an entire language, but I've been doing it, what, almost 23 years of my life now, and I'm still coming across words that I have never heard of. But that's fun. That's what's the cool thing about language, I think. Yeah. Thanks for your question.
Hello. I had a question. Since you're here at Anime
Wait,
Matsuri,
hold on, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Since coming over here to Anime Matsuri, you have probably had a chance to meet a lot of different Japanese celebrities from different parts of the entertainment industry.
Right.
Do you have any funny stories from that? And also, in Japan, unlike here, like Lolita fashion and anime kind of go side by side. But in Japan, are they actually very close, or are they really far apart in the industries?
In terms of Lolita fashion, I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to fashion, as you can see. But Japanese guests, I haven't unfortunately had a lot of time to talk to the Japanese guests here. A few new people I have met here and I've happened to become really good friends with. One of them is Ladybeard, because he's fellow Australian, so we just clicked like that. And the other one is Stella Chu. You guys know that cosplayer? Yeah, so apparently she was a huge fan of Aki and Owls, and we're oh, we're fans of you as well. That's cute. But when it comes to Japanese guests, what was that? Reika. Oh yeah, we did talk to Reika. Yeah, she's cool. Jeez. Oh, actually, it wasn't in this convention, but it was at Otakuthon last year in Montreal. We were guests there, and what's his name? His name escapes me. Oh yeah, Obata Takeshi, the illustrator for Death Note. He was there, and we're at the opening ceremony, and we're and he called his name, is the guest Obata Takeshi? And I'm just where the fuck is Obata Takeshi? I want to meet him so bad. But he wasn't there, he didn't stand up, so people just assumed oh, he's not at the opening ceremony. I'm just damn it, I wanted to meet him so much. And then we were walking back from the opening ceremony, because we had a signing, and I remember just walking, and then Aki just tapped me on the shoulder, and she's look directly behind you, not even a feet away. And I turned around, and all the Takeshi was right here, just walking alongside me. And I think I finally understand the fanboy moment, because I looked back, and then I looked forward, and I couldn't move. I couldn't talk to him at all. I could have easily just turned around and said, "Hello, Obata Sensei," and he would have been "What's up, random guy?" But no, I couldn't. I couldn't do it. That was I think that was the only time I could have just gone and said hello to him, and it wouldn't have been weird, right? Because we're all at a convention, we expect people to come up to us and be "Hey, what's up? We like your work." So I was right freaking there, and I could have easily just said, "Hey, I love your work," but I couldn't. I couldn't do it. And I'm oh, this is what it must feel like. I don't mean to put myself on a pedestal or anything, but maybe this is what it feels like to you guys when you come up to us, or come up to other YouTubers you love, right? Because I've seen the reaction I did towards Obata Sensei was the exact same reaction I've seen a lot of you guys do to us, or other guests, famous, other famous YouTubers. And for the longest time, I've never had that in my life. And then it happened right there. And we were fellow guests too, so it wouldn't have even been that weird. So yeah, that was really interesting to me. I kind of also had a similar thing with that when I did an interview with Okayado, the creator of Monster Musume. I was have you guys seen that video? Yeah. I looked calm in that video, but it took me an hour to finally get used to him. Because I walked in and he was just there, and I'm I was just reading Monster Musume. So, that's that was really interesting, and I have to start getting used to getting out of that, because I'm gonna be doing so many more interviews, so many more awesome people. I'll let you guys in on a little trade secret, but last month I was supposed to interview the author of ReZero, but I couldn't because he didn't want his face or his voice or anything shown. But I actually did have a chance to I haven't even told Aki this, but I had that exact same moment. I was I just finished watching ReZero and you're right here in front of me. That's so weird. I didn't even know what you look like, but you're right here. But it really sucked because like I would have loved to talk to him and been like, what happens, afterwards, and like how do you like make these kinds of stories and all that. It's like it's so cool to be able to do that, and like I couldn't have been able to do any of that if it wasn't for you guys, like supporting me and like I don't know. It's just like I always wanted to like give back and like just do different things on my channel. Like I don't know anyone else on YouTube who is able to go and interview these creators, and I'm like, and I was given the opportunity, so I'm like, why the hell would I not do it? Because like I'm sure not only I would like to hear a lot of things, but I'm sure a lot of you guys would like to hear a lot of things from these creators. And it's funny because like, in a few days, like after Anime Matsuri, I'm gonna go interview the author of Konosuba, which is really cool as well. So I'll be able to hear a lot of things about that. But yeah, I'm hoping I can get out of my fanboy zone with those kinds of creators, because to this day I regret not saying hello to all of them. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced that as well. Yeah. Next big question.
How's the public transport in Japan?
How's the public transport in Japan? Probably the best in the world. In Tokyo. In Tokyo, it's the best in the world. Because everywhere you go in Tokyo, there's at least one train running. I think I read somewhere that the average delay time of a train in Tokyo is 8 seconds. So that just puts into perspective how on time that shit is. Like, if it says a train is coming at like 11:34, it's coming at 11:34. Like, you need to be there at 11:34. If you're there at 11:35, it's gone. Yeah. And that's because, like, especially in Tokyo, like, just in Tokyo alone, there's 30 million people who live there. Right? Just to put it in perspective, the entirety of Australia has 25 million people. So it just goes to show that like they need to be so precise with their time, because they're dealing with 30 million people every day, right? But I love actually like my secret favorite things to do in Tokyo is to like go to Shinjuku Station, which is the biggest train station in Japan, and just to see these like clearly tourists who have never been to Japan before just holding this huge map of all the trains in Shinjuku and just walking around. And they're just so confused because, and I don't blame them, right? Because when you look at the map, it's like an ant's nest. It's just all over the place. So I don't know. I look at that and I'm just like, don't worry, bro. I've been there before. It's fine. Everyone has been there. But if you're going outside of Tokyo or like outside of the major cities, unfortunately you need a car, which sucks because you can't drive in Japan yet. So yeah, as long as you're not like too far away from the main cities, then like rely on that public transport, especially the trains. I don't know about the buses because I've never been on the bus. Well, I haven't really been on the buses in Japan, and that's because you don't really need to. There's just trains everywhere. But yeah, just if you go to Japan, then just try not to get lost. Yeah. Next good question.
What's the best food you've had in Japan?
The best food I've had in Japan. That's like an even more difficult question than what's your favorite anime? Jesus. What's that? Yeah. Man, there's a lot. I'd say I really like my gyoza, and like, all the classic stuff like ramen, and, that's all great. My favorite has to probably be, like, I can't, like, as cliche as it sounds, I can't go past sushi. Like, that is like the food of the gods, dude. Like, you can't hate that stuff, man. Especially like Japanese. Like, you go to a sushi restaurant in Japan and you'll never be able to eat sushi here again. Just saying. But my other favorite dish is this one called sukiyaki, which is like, it's like this soy-based broth, and you put like pork, just vegetables and that kind of stuff, and you get a separate bowl, you crack a raw egg in it, you mix it around, and then you take like the pork and like the vegetables from that soy broth and you dip it in the raw egg and then you eat it. Sounds gross, I know. And trust me, like a lot of my friends from Australia, like when I told them that, they were like, so you grab food that's completely fine on its own and then you dip it in a raw egg. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, how's that appetizing? I'm like, trust me, dude, you need to have it. And they have it, and every single person I've told about that and has had it is like, I'm sorry I ever doubted you. And because it's the best. Like, I find that a lot of like really nice Japanese food is like gross in concept, but when you actually have it, it's like, oh, it's not that bad at all. So my recommendation to you guys if you go to Japan is like, try everything. Because the best thing is, even if you go to like a restaurant and you order something new and you think it sucks, I mean, it's cheap as hell. So you didn't actually waste all that much money to like eat something that you thought was gross. So, and there's so many different kinds of food in Japan that like, you know, go past, you know, all the simple stuff like ramen and sushi and all that. Like, eat ramen and sushi, like go for it, but you know, I think what's really nice is to like just try all the really weird and strange things to kind of, I guess, test your taste buds. So yeah, thanks for your question. And it's hard talking for an hour straight by yourself.
What's the best way to appreciate the culture while visiting Japan without actually being like inappropriate or disruptive to the locals?
What's the best way to appreciate the culture? I don't know. I guess just like kind of going back to the last question, but like just trying everything out, like not being afraid. And I think this is the case with like any country or like new area of the world you go to. Like, just look for something that's like specific to that country or culture and just try it out. Like, in my case, like, I've never been to Texas before, and the first thing I wanted to eat was Whataburger. Because like, Whataburger is like the thing that's like, you know, pretty like unique to Texas, right? And like, you know, it's different to like all the other burger joints. I'm like, I'll try it, why not? You know, while I'm here, you know, create an experience and say like, yeah, I ate Whataburger in Texas and I enjoyed it. So, you gotta just try it out, man. Like, one thing I also like to do, because like I've been traveling a lot more to like different regions in Japan, is like trying dishes that are specific to that region, because Japan has a lot of that, like, not just like prefecturally, but also like, there are foods that are specific like to that town. Like, for example, like when Aki and I went to Yakushima, the like local delicacy is flying fish. Not that I had flying fish before. We tried it and it was like the most delicious thing we've ever had, right? So, yeah, just like appreciating the food and just trying everything out and like, try not to, I guess, like you can get weirded out by stuff that you think is weird, but get weirded out by it once you've experienced it. Like, don't be like, you know, just because I say that main cafes suck, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go to a main cafe, right? Like, I reckon you need to try it out yourself and come to a conclusion on yourself to see if it sucks or not. Because I did the exact same thing. Like, the first time I went to a main cafe, I got taken by my friend Duncan, or PDR, who's a fellow YouTuber in Japan. And like, at first, like, I didn't want to go just because I hadn't really heard great things about it. But Duncan was like, dude, you need to at least try it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You know what, I'll try it. And I regretted it super hard. But yeah, just, you know, that experience of just trying it out, I think is like, I think also like, if you just try it out and just give it a go, I think that in itself is like showing appreciation for a country or showing appreciation for a culture. Because going all the way to a country and not trying it out, I think is kind of disrespectful. So yeah, thanks for the question. Nice Pikachu onesie.
Thank you. What was the prettiest place you ever seen in Japan?
What was the what?
The prettiest place you ever been to in Japan?
The what, sorry? Prettiest thing? What? The prettiest place? Oh, the prettiest place I've been to Japan. Oh, that's really hard. Recently I went to, because the cherry blossoms have just started blooming in Japan from the start of April, so I went to a park with a bunch of friends and we went to go see the cherry blossoms. That was really, really nice. Geez, there are a lot of pretty places in Japan. Like even in Tokyo, there are a lot of really pretty places. Yakushima was really, really nice. The Princess Mononoke Forest, that was just magical. I mean, you know, yeah, just I think a lot of like nature places are really pretty, but unfortunately, like to go to those kinds of pretty places, you kind of have to travel quite far. Like Chichibu is another example, which is the town that the anime Anohana was based off, which I went to. That was really pretty. Yeah, just a lot of the nature places, I think, are just really nice places to visit. So if you have enough time to like travel all the way out there, then I think that's a really nice place to experience. Thanks for your question. All right, Michael, all right.
I was gonna ask if you had barbecue in Houston and if you could compare it to the one in Japan.
If I've had barbecue?
Yes.
Like Korean barbecue?
Texas barbecue.
Oh, okay. Excuse me, I forgot we were in Texas for a second. I haven't had Texas barbecue yet, like proper Texas barbecue. That's hopefully one thing I'll be able to experience before I go. Oh, okay, perfect. We're going tonight then. Sweet. So I'll let you know if it's any good. I know there are some Texas barbecue places in Japan as well. Like, it's weird. There are so many American joints that I went to, but the first time was in Japan. Like the first time I went to a Taco Bell was in Shibuya. Which is really weird. And the first time I went to a TGI Friday was in like the middle of Asakusa. And it wasn't even a Friday, so... So like, I think, yeah, I mean, you know, going to any country, like, Japan always like kind of Japanifies everything. Like, you know, a Denny's in America is nothing like a Denny's in Japan, which is really disappointing for me because I love Denny's. And like, when I went to a Denny's in Japan, I was like, cool, I'm gonna get like the greasiest freaking burger ever with like the greasiest fries, and I'm gonna feel like absolute shit after this is done. But I'm not gonna regret it at all. And then I walk in and they don't even sell burgers. I'm like, what? It's like a Kenny's, not a Denny's. So, yeah, but and see, like that's the other reason, like why every time like I go to a new state in America, like I love to try like the actual thing, right? Like I've been to a TGI Fridays and I've been to a Taco Bell in Japan before, but I want to go to one in America because I know it's going to be different some way, and I just want to like I just want to like experience that difference, you know? Because I think I find that like really fun and interesting. And that's like one of the fundamental reasons why I love traveling so much and like love coming all the way out here. Like I flew freaking 12 hours on a plane just to come here. Like you can say that like I flew 12 hours on a plane just to try Whataburger. Like I am not regretting it at all because that shit was delicious. So, you know, and I love that, man. Like it's just fun to do, and like, yeah. Thanks for your question.
12 minutes left, by the way.
What was that?
12 minutes.
Alrighty, we'll do a few more questions.
Has anything in Japan disappointed you?
Has anything in Japan disappointed me? Yeah. Definitely. Let's see. Maid Cafe. Maid Cafe. Tsundere Maid Cafe. I mean, yeah. Again, like it comes with the whole thing of like experiencing something new, right? So I'm gonna get disappointed a lot because I'm trying all sorts of different things out. Like I get disappointed by the people sometimes just because it's like, come on, man, like that's not cool. But I'd say highlight disappointment in Japan is the makeup. I just can't go past that fact, man. It's like it's built for people like us, and if people like us don't like it, who's gonna like it? It's like what the hell? So yeah, makeup. Short answer. Thanks for your question. Still a few more. Oh, there we go.
Our question was, though, do you have any favorite Japanese slang?
Favorite Japanese slang? I gotta think of one that's appropriate for this convention. I really like. There's a lot of really cool like Japanese internet slang, and I was going to make a video on it until Rachel and Jun beat it to me. Like I was just writing a script for it, and then Rachel and Jun like released the video being like, internet slang, which is funny, and I'm like, and I like messaged and I'm like, you bastards to plan it. And Rachel was like, suck it, bitch. That's what she's like. I just exposed Rachel. But like, let's see, like my favorite like internet slang or Japanese slang. I mean, you know, there's like all the ones that like you hear in anime every now and then, like JK. That doesn't mean like not the same JK like lol JK. Like it's not the same. Like JK is in like JK is Joshikose, which means high school girl. So like there's a lot of like those kinds of words. My favorite internet slang though is kusa, which means grass. So in Japan, like you guys might have seen it every now and then, but like if you look at a Japanese comment, do you notice that some Japanese comments online have a lot of W's at the end of it? Have you noticed that? Do you guys know what that is?
No? Yeah.
That's like their equivalent of LOL.
Yeah.
Because W is short for wara, which means to laugh. But kusa, which means grass, came about when there's like a lot of W's in line, it kind of looks like a bed of grass. So that's where that came from. So like if someone just types kusa, it means they're laughing really hard. But that's really strange to someone who doesn't understand Japanese internet language, because like they'd watch a funny video and they go to the comments and just says grass. And they're like, I don't remember seeing grass in this video. But yeah, like I think that one's my favorite. I actually laughed out loud when I first found that out, because like I was one of those people who just saw grass and I'm just like, why is everyone typing grass? Is that like a meme or something? Like, I don't get it. So yeah, that's probably my favorite Japanese slang. But I recommend you go check out Rachel and Jun's video on internet slang in Japanese. It's really funny. What's that?
Why not?
Wait, there's like 60 people talking at the same time. What? Make it anyway? Okay, sure. If you guys want to see it. Then... You know what? I'm gonna message Rachel and Jun tonight and just be like, fuck you guys, I'm still making it. Because a bunch of people abuse their techniques. Thanks for your question though, dude.
Hello.
What's up?
I'm not sure if this is asked before, but have you ran into any local Japanese fans?
Have I run into local Japanese fans? I haven't. And that's because my videos are all in English and they don't have Japanese subtitles, so they're not really built for Japanese audiences. Like for the longest time, I remember a bunch of my friends were saying like, hey, you know, once you move to Japan, you should put like Japanese subtitles in your videos. Because, you know, so you can like develop a fan base in the country that you're from. I try to do that, but what's really difficult about that with my videos is that I'm really stupidly sarcastic in my videos, right? Like I am a douchebag in my videos, right? And sarcasm and irony doesn't exist in the Japanese language, right? It's not really a form of comedy that works with the structure of the Japanese language. So one time I did try to like write Japanese subtitles for one of my rants, and I read back on it, and I sound like a total asshole. And like, I can just imagine like these Japanese people like watching my videos, and me just acting like a total asshole while I talk about anime. They'll probably just be like, why does this guy have 1 million subs? Like, who likes this guy? I mean, I still think that every day, but like, so I've thought about it for the longest time to kind of do that, but all the people that do kind of recognize me in Japan are like, you know, people who are visiting from other countries. And there's this one, it's so funny because like, there's this one retro gaming store where I buy like all my like N64 games and like Super Nintendo games in Akihabara. And every time I've gone there, I've been stopped by someone. In this tiny store, like this store, right, like, I want to say is as big as the stage. It's a tiny, tiny like retro gaming store, and like the shelves are like packed, and like you have to like kind of walk like this to like get anywhere. But I've always been stopped in that cramped spot, and it's always been Australians. I don't know why. Like, I'd just be like looking at games, and then like this guy would like tap my shoulder, and he'd be like, "Oi mate, you're the anime man?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh awesome man, I love your videos. I'm from Sydney." I'm like, "Why are you here?" And it's so weird. And like, I fully expect me getting stopped in Akihabara because, you know, it is Otaku City, right? But no, I've never been stopped by a Japanese person. It's weird. I'm still waiting for the first ever Japanese person to like ever stop me in Japan. Weirdly enough, the only Japanese people who do recognize me in Japan are fellow YouTubers, which is cool. But yeah, still waiting. Thanks for the question, man. Let's do one more question, I'd say. Last one.
Hi, I wanted to ask, what tips can you give us about jet lag and how you deal with jet lag in traveling all around the world?
Okay. Okay, my number one tip with jet lag is, okay, just to put in perspective, right now in Houston it is 11, oh, almost 12 o'clock, right, midday. In Japan it's 2 in the morning right now. My tip for jet lag is, once you get on the plane and the plane starts taking off, you change the time on your phone to that of your destination. So say for example, like, if I caught a plane now back to Japan, right, I change my phone, it's 2 in the morning. So what I would do is I would sleep for like 5 hours until about 7 o'clock local time, so that by the time you land, you've kind of already adjusted your sleep schedule to the destination. Like what a lot of people like unfortunately do and like get destroyed by jet lag is that they don't change their clock. And so on the plane, their sleeping schedule is the same as back at home. But they don't realize that by the time they land, it's a completely different time, right? So if you're the kind of person who can sleep anywhere and at any time, that's like the best way to overcome it. Otherwise, this just take sleeping pills, like, or you know, just like kind of live with the struggle of jet lag for the first couple of days. I mean, to be fair, like I've done this technique so many times with like adjusting the clock, but the first day I always land, like I still like get kind of the aftershock of jet lag. Like on the first day, like I landed like in the morning sometime, and I'd already slept on the plane, but I landed and my body was just like, bro, you need sleep. Like right now, and my body was just like, no, I've got this, and I need to get to the hotel, and my brain's just like, no, bro, you need to sleep right now. And so I just passed out, just completely for like a few hours. But I mean, like to be fair, my sleep schedule is just completely fucked because YouTube life. So, but yeah, like for anyone who's like wanting to go to Japan, that's my tip for you: is to, as soon as the plane starts to take off, just change your phone, clock to the destination, and sleep on the plane according to that, according to the local time at your destination. But yeah, thank you very much for coming to this panel. like solo panel, so as you can see, I was like very nervously walking around and trying to be funny. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was really cool of you guys to like give me this opportunity to do it, and yeah, rock on, Anime Matsuri. Thanks, guys. Yeah, happy birthday, Misty. You're old.
We sing happy birthday.
Yeah!
Oh, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Misty. Happy birthday to you.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you, Anime Matsuri. We'll be walking around, so feel free to stop us if you'd like.
Okay.
If the convention likes us, we'll try and be back next year.